April is the month of the military child and it's National Poetry Month. This month, we connect you with Tyler Carroll and Keith Dow, both U.S. Army veterans and co founders of Dead Reckoning Collective, a veteran owned and operated publishing company. We're inspired by how Keith and Tyler continue to serve the veteran community by encouraging a positive lifestyle through writing and storytelling. Now, let's get to know the creators behind Dead Reckoning Collective. Tyler and Keith, you guys are both Army, so tell us about growing up, what life was like in your family, and then what was your calling to service?
Yeah, I think Tyler and I have similar backgrounds in terms of coming from broken homes and having varying lenses in view of the military as we grew up. What was odd about that was that we, just based on like our exterior shell, we really didn't understand that about each other for quite some time. How much we had in common. So I did 5 years active duty in the Army. My last duty station was in Italy. And that was where I met Tyler. And I got out in 2013 and he got out a couple of years after me. And we just managed to stay in touch. Tyler has a pretty much, much more in-depth story about his service and what caused him to write from his service, but I've always written. It's just something that I've always done. It was something that was available to me at no cost. That I had opportunities in school. It was like one of the only things that I seemed to excel at in school. So if there was anything that I was ever enthusiastic about before I graduated high school, it was that for sure. And it was something that I just kind of always went back to.
And as far as me, I come from a military family, and so I saw what service meant. I actually didn't really like it at first. Like Keith kind of alluded to, kind of a broken home, divorced parents. My dad enlisted when I was a little bit older, and he was always gone. I have two grandfathers that are West Point graduates, a grandmother who was a Black Hawk pilot. They were always gone, part of the Desert Storm era. And so I really actually did not like the military growing up for the longest time because I saw what it did to my family. But once I got out of high school and attended college and kind of had my first taste of freedom, I wasn't really on the right track at first. And so enlisting was kind of self-preservation for me. And I always kind of felt bad about that because I felt like my parents and my family served like for the right reasons, and I was doing it kind of for the wrong reason. And then once I got in, I realized that's how most of us were. We were mostly doing it because we were lost. We were trying to find some kind of path, some type of structure, and we all kind of liked the team environment. And so after I decided I wanted to be a medic, I decided I wanted to be part of an infantry unit because that was kind of where like the tightest knit of people would be. And I kind of wanted to be the front lines. I got to be part of the 173rd out there in Italy, like Keith said, and that's where we met. And so unlike Keith, I didn't write a whole lot. When I did write, it was always very like bullet point. It was reflection. It was just kind of random thoughts on things, just these small journal entries. And right before enlisting, I lived with my grandmother and I started kind of writing poetry just to kind of figure out what life was about. But just like most people who are in the creative world, the military doesn't really foster that. And so when I was in, I didn't write at all. I didn't draw at all. I didn't create much of anything. But once I got out, I realized I had a story to tell. And so I decided to write again, and I decided to write some poetry. And then I kind of written a reflection piece on leaving Afghanistan before I thought I was ready. And Keith decided that he wanted to put out a little feeler of who wants to start a blog site with me. And I was the first one to respond. And I sent him that article, and he was like, this is it. This is exactly what I kind of want to be the very first piece for the website. And we started underneath a different name at that point, but eventually we decided that we wanted to create Dead Reckoning and put other people's stories out there.
Oh, that's a perfect segue, Tyler, to talk about what you guys created back in 2017. So tell everybody about what Dead Reckoning Collective is. What is it? What is the word? What does the name mean? Why'd you guys create it? And what's the mission of Dead Reckoning Collective?
So Dead Reckoning Collective really came up with me coming up or flying up to Canada where Keith lived at that time, and us just sitting down and saying, all right, what is exactly that we have here? We started this blog site to kind of tell these transition stories and to shine a more positive light on the veteran narrative, because we saw that there was these two spectrums, kind of these two stigmas that were following the veteran community. One, kind of put them all up on a pedestal, the special operations kind of community, and that everything that they say is the gospel, and everybody just says, let's support the veteran community no matter what. And then the other side was, let's proceed with caution. They're broken, they're unstable, and we don't know how they're going to react. And I think Keith and I both realized that most of us are in that middle ground where we could have gone either way at any given time. And we saw ourselves kind of on both of these spectrums. But ideally, at first, what we were really talking about were these transition stories. And so if you were in the military or know anything about land navigation, dead reckoning is the term that describes the process of finding where you're at on a map based off of a previously known location. And so we really wanted to, so in short, what we wanted to say was to know who you are from where you've been. You were somebody in the military, but you are somebody now, and it's not just a veteran.
Yeah, I think some people will find that their identity is very much wrapped up in the military, and some people will find that they put some space between themselves and the military, and that's about what Tyler is talking about when he's talking about dead reckoning. And finding who you are based on where you've been, and telling your story is a great way to do that. So we produce literature by veterans for everyone. We're adamant about that. And that's a big part of closing that gap too, is that, that whether that is through these educational courses that we're doing, workshop groups, or it's through somebody submitting a full manuscript of poetry, or creating a compilation, through various submissions, maybe one poem, maybe three, but the collective effort is all there.
You brought up something, Keith, that we want to talk about. Why is closing that gap important to you guys between veteran and civilian?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, we're living in a house together in theory. Our fellow Americans and us are all living together once we get home. So what are we going to do? Are we going to tiptoe around each other for the next, however many years we're alive, or are we going to learn to coexist? We're at a really strange time in history where everybody's mad at each other. So wouldn't it be great if we could, produce some literature, some stories and stuff like that would help us better understand a 20-year conflict? Not every book is going to be a war book, but we can certainly shine some light on the subject, and then you can learn a lot from somebody's story, even if it's not about that subject. You can learn a lot about that conflict. Tolkien wrote the whole Lord of the Rings series about his experiences in World War I, and most people barely even recognize that if they didn't know it to begin with. So you can learn lots of different ways.
And I think once you get started writing and telling your story, and you understand the craft that much more, you start to find these themes. And so, sure, we're telling a war story, but we're also telling a love story, a story of loss, a story of trauma, a story of brotherhood, a story of confusion, a story of self-reflection. You start questioning what other players were part of this. Is it like you just start examining pretty much every aspect of your life within that. And when you start doing that, you see how other people relate to that within their own experience that may not have to do anything with the war. And so anytime you can have any introspection to yourself and kind of dismantle that ego, you see others living a very similar life with not so similar experiences.
Tell us about the process. What's it like working with veterans?
I think it really comes down to the individual and their experiences. We're dealing with some people who have already gone on to higher education in creative writing and literature. And they know they've already submitted to other publications. They've maybe had sour experiences with other publications where their creative ideas weren't respected or weren't enjoyed in the same way. On the same note, we're also dealing with people who have absolutely no experience with submitting to a publishing company, to finishing a manuscript, to any of that. Our most recent publication was Rock Eater, written by a Marine machine gunner, and he's a great example. He was really great to work with in that he was just enthusiastic about getting his story out. He didn't he really wasn't concerned with, the frills and stuff. He wanted to do it in an authentic way that reflected him and his peers. And he just really wanted to make it as good as it possibly could be. And I think we really harnessed that. But his energy was, a big thing that was brought to the table that really made it what it was. But I mean, that's, so when I say like it comes down to the individual, it really does. Their experiences, their previous experiences with writing and publications are going to vary in things like how they present it to you, how they receive and utilize feedback. Things like that are really important in the editing process and in the publication process.
And I think we're in a unique position where being kind of that bridge of the military experience in the civilian world and being a veteran-owned publication, we understand the grunt, the guy on the ground. Keith and I were both that. A lot of our friends are that. And then we also have these academic friends, and we're trying to get it into a publication. And so we're a little non-traditional. And where Keith and I have always had in mind with the collective ideas, this is a process between us and the creator themselves, the writer themselves. And so people have to submit something that is near finish, if not almost 100% finished. We go through an editing process with Keith, and then we go through a revision and formatting and publication process with me. And so you get to work with on both of us of helping design the book, get the book cover. Like he was talking about with our most recent publication, he knew the demographic of who he was wanting to give that book to. And so he was like, this is what the cover needs to look like. This is what I think the formatting should kind of look like. And we were able to play on ideas back and forth. And so it was a creative process with the team, not just you do one part, I do another part. And then throughout the process, I'm sending him stuff, kind of getting the thumbs up. And so it's just a team effort, because that's what we've always believed in, is doing this together. And I truly believe almost anything you do together comes out better.
Where can readers get the book right now? If they watch this and they want to say, I want to go read that book, where can they get it?
Yeah, so Rock Eater is available everywhere now. We have copies on Amazon, and then we have a pretty limited pre-order package that by the time this comes out, it'll probably be sold out. But this is Rock Eater, and
any online bookstore that you can get books at, you can get it. You can get it on our website, deadreckoningco.com. But to kind of go with your question as far as the titles, we trust the author too. There's always a working process where it's like, okay, give us a couple ideas. Well, hey, what about this? And we're bouncing back and forth. But Rock Eater, it actually started off, I'll just say it started off as 31 because he was a machine gunner, and the MOS classification is 0331. But the big poem in there is called Rock Eater, and so he's like, no, this is it. And when he first came up with 31, we were hesitant about it, but we're like, if that's what you think, but let's kind of sit on it. And throughout the process, he came back with that, and we're like, that's way better. Let's do that.
What should people know about you guys and Dead Reckoning Collective as far as upcoming programs or events or things that you guys are doing? Because it's a very active company you guys have.
Yeah, so we have our 7-week memoir course coming up. That's already closed, but there's more coming like that. We've also done a couple one-day courses, just writing courses, dealing with different disciplines from journaling to memoir to flash fiction and things like that.
We do have now with our educators and editors that can put on these one-day classes or the 6 week workshop programs. Where at that point, like our one back in October of last year, it was 12 to 14 writers that were part of our fiction workshop. Those guys are still in a group text now, where once they became part of the collective a little bit more, part of the workshop, now they were able to get feedback off of the peers just during that portion and actually understand what it means to workshop a piece of writing. Now you have a little circle of 3 or 4 other people that can be first-time readers off of a piece that you've written. And you start building a team around you as an author to see a project through to the end, and then hopefully submit to us to get it published afterwards. So it's always about the collective and these collaborative efforts.
So, Tyler, you mentioned connections, and as a national museum, we're all about connecting to people. In fact, people may not know this, but we connected to you guys as we were looking for some other storytelling elements of our newest exhibition, the 20-Year War, Our Next Greatest Generation, which you guys can see behind me. And we came across Odes to GWAT, which is a poem written by David Rose, who's a U.S. Marine veteran. And it's now displayed as part of the exhibition in our gallery here. And we probably wouldn't have come across it had we not connected to you guys to make another element of storytelling even that much better here at the museum for this exhibition. Ask you guys one final question. Why do you guys think it's important for veterans or just the community at large to support veterans in the creative arts?
I think, one of the most important things about veterans in the arts is that we're the textbooks. I really wanted to learn more about the individual experience, and with armed conflict especially, what did that person feel? Those things come in the form of essays and oral histories and short stories and poetry and stuff like that. In every conflict, poetry has been part of warrior culture for centuries.
And I think just kind of being part of the information age now, people are constantly consuming, and there's so many people out there that are able to tell their story, their side of things, and in order to just gain that perspective, like, it's invaluable.
We're just grateful for your time today, and keep doing what you're doing. And we're going to get the word out about Dead Reckoning Collective and keep this thing going, because it's a cool thing. It's a great outlet for everybody.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much, Andy. Can't wait to visit the museum.
I know.
We hope you enjoyed this month's inspiring story of service featuring Keith Dow and Tyler Carroll from the Dead Reckoning Collective. We'll be featuring poems from the Dead Reckoning Collective all month long as we celebrate National Poetry Month. You can also check out our newest exhibition, the 20-Year War, Our Next Greatest Generation, here at the museum, on view through October. For other programs and events, check out our website at nationalvmm.org. And as always, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plan your visit today, and we'll see you soon at the National Veterans Memorial Museum.